security token, Tether, the first stablecoin, and Mastercoin, the first ICO. Can you please give wealthiest a very warm welcome to the stage?
I know he rocks so well. Well, I guess good morning. Good to see everyone here gathered in Vegas for the World Crypto Con, or the WCC. How many of you were here last year? All right, well, so EOS representing. That, or they've done a good job of bringing in new people. But yeah, it was fun doing Halloween here. Everybody was in costume yesterday, so you do have time to find a costume. This is Vegas. And you've got some of the best makeup artists in the world here. And so if you get really creative, you can have a ton of fun between now and then. But wow, lots happened in the last year. It's been an incredible year for blockchain in general. Major things have been happening on the EOS front. We're up, we're running, we're live, we're the most used blockchain in the world. We've got a number of leading DACs running on the blockchain with the ability to scale. I mean, that's a major accomplishment, a first for the entire ecosystem. We still have a long ways to go, but I think that we've accomplished a lot. I'm very proud of the work that's been done by everyone in the community, all of the contributions that have been made, and glad to see that we have a presence here at this event. I mean, that's one of the challenges with things like EOS. What is EOS? Who is EOS? EOS is an open source mainnet, and very confusing to the outside world. To those of us in the space, we understand this. But imagine you're a member of a media organization, and you want to write a story about EOS. Who do you call? These are some of the sort of challenges. Or if you're a big company and you want to build something on blockchain, and you're evaluating the various platforms that you can develop on, how do you evaluate, EOS? Who do you contact? Most of them are expecting in traditional business, someone in, enterprise sales or biz dev or corp dev to, come in and make a presentation and sell them on the reason they should be using this platform over others. And so what is EOS? And, Block One, which obviously is the company that did the ICO, did the token sale, wrote the mainnet code that we, the community, launched, is also limited in terms of a lot of the things that they are able to do for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, legal. Though you probably all saw that Block One did settle with the SEC. That is a massive victory. If you don't understand, is that a good or a bad thing? I don't think it could have been a better outcome. And probably the best outcome of anyone that we'll see in the industry. And that's because Block One blocked the United States. Sadly. Americans were not allowed to participate. And it was also not one of those things that was a joke. I was with a number of people yesterday and significant investors in the ecosystem. And they're like, yeah, I remember coming to you a bunch of times and talking to everyone at Block One and saying, well, how do we do it? And I said, well, you can't. And I turn around and show them on the back of my shirt. I don't know if any of you have any of the first edition EOS shirts from Block One. It had a legal disclaimer on the back.
We have some to give away.
Those are, original shirts. Actually, people have offered quite a bit for those because they're first edition and very humorous when you think back. But it was because of decisions like that that things worked out, because people would say, hey, how do I get in? Is there a way, I know you just say that for legal reasons. I go, no, really. That doesn't mean that Americans that tried very hard weren't able to get in. Ultimately, that is why something had to be done. But the fact that the organization did use its best efforts, and these weren't just statements, but reality that everybody in the organization adhered to, it positioned Block One and ultimately our community to fare well as we go through this very tumultuous time where governments are finally waking up to the fact that this is real, this is really happening. I like to talk about JP Morgan coin as a very positive thing for our industry, because that was Jamie Dimon and the banking industry validating that what we're doing is real. We're not just a bunch of guys in tin hats. that what we're working on is real and this stuff might actually change the world. And one of the leading banks in the world has validated that. And how is JP Morgan coin done? I think we got the best of everything we could get. That major validating event. We're seeing something similar with Facebook right now. We're seeing arguably the most influential, internet company in the world validating that what we're working on is real. Because, most of us don't think of Jamie Dimon as being a technology visionary or thought leader. But you do start to think of the Googles and the Facebooks of the world as knowing what they're doing. And another validation, I don't know if you've been watching the last week or two, but China, has also said, now publicly, if you've been in the space and behind the scenes, you've known China's been working on this for years, but it's now official. Is Xi stating we're doing this in a big way? So you now have the financial industry, the technology industry, and government all validating the work that we're doing here. That's a big deal. It means we are, everything that we've been thinking is probably right, that this is going to change the world. And now the big question is always going to be, does it change in the right way? Technology is inherently, amoral. It's not good or bad. It's a tool. It's an enabling tool. And how we use those technologies will determine the future that we create. And so this is what's very, very important for all of us. Where we spend our time, the things that we work on, the projects we support, where we devote that energy is what's going to determine the future that we ultimately collectively co-create. And the impact of these decisions, are ultimately going to create the world in which we all live. And so choose wisely. Take the time to really think through what you're doing and why you're doing it. Asking yourself the question why is one of the most important things you can do to kind of find that, call it, that guiding light, that North Star is not can I do something. You shouldn't do things just because you can. Certainly when the implications of the work that we're doing has the potential to change the world and the reality in which we live. You should be asking yourself why. Why am I doing this? What do I hope to accomplish? Where do I hope this leads us? Because when you ask yourself those questions and you really get into the why, you're pretty much only going to make very good decisions. And you might even question the decisions you might make otherwise. You might be motivated saying, I want that new Porsche, I want that Lambo. But when you really start to ask yourself the questions why, that starts to become a pretty hollow sort of motivator. Because we do have the potential to make big changes. I like to say that we're essentially where our founding fathers were in the creation of the United States. This is a challenge that has existed for millennia. For thousands of years, humanity has been trying to figure out how do we govern ourselves? How do we create a fair and free society where you get to be you and I get to be me and everybody gets to live long and prosper? But it's been a very, very difficult thing to create systems of governance because there's always going to be people that attempt to capture that system. And that's, to some extent, what's happened in the U.S. Our founding fathers were great men with great intentions. If you haven't read through the Federalist Papers, these are things that I highly recommend you do because there's really great wisdom there, and you want to make sure that you study the past so that you don't make those same mistakes. Because I think that we're at that same moment. We are sitting around and talking about the future in which we all want to live and what those systems of governance should look like. And I think EOS is on the front line of governance systems, in the blockchain space. And so we are those people that are asking these questions and figuring out how do we design systems to not make the same mistakes of our forefathers. Who are these founding mothers, and fathers going to be, which is a big difference between the last go around. And it's open to everyone. This is an open source system, so it's up to you to choose to get involved because it's open to everyone to participate. This is not a closed system of a small group of elite people sitting in a room deciding, how are we going to design the system by which everybody else has to live. This is open to everyone to have a say. And so this is an invitation for you to get involved. We have the potential to do what everyone before us has failed at because we have new tools. Tools that enable transparency. but hopefully with some degree of privacy. Tools of immutability so no one can go and edit the records of the past, which some people in positions of power have been able to do, delete. That didn't happen, thanks to the media and other organizations. So just really glad to see everybody here, excited to meet the developers building on EOS, excited to talk to block producers that are supporting the infrastructure that makes this all possible, excited to talk to developers working on the open source code, investors, and everyone else. Take a moment to, look to your left, look to your right. These are all your brothers and sisters. These are all people waking up every day with similar visions, similar missions, and together we rise. Excited for these 2 days. Thank you very much.